Thank you for joining Anne's Art Desk. These videos are brought to you by the City of Palo Alto and the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation.
So thank you all for your hard work on your homework, and welcome back to my class for week 3 already of deep dive into watercolor, which seems really shallow now that it's already week 3. Shallow dive, but super fun. And I think today in my syllabus, I said we were gonna kind of overlap different materials. Our Google, sorry, it's still thinking Google into our watercolors. So if you are not currently speaking, would you please mute yourself? Because every time you tick or tack your art supplies, it transmits to everybody's ear, and it often and sharp.
Okay.
Although the sound I love most is people rinsing their brush. Charming sound to transmit across the United States. So I'll miss that, but I won't miss the really sharp percussive sounds. But if you have something to say, you are always welcome to just unmute and jump on in. Welcome, somebody else. Janine, hi.
Hi.
I was just saying that if you are not actually actively speaking, please mute, because otherwise we get a lot of percussive art table sounds. But you're always welcome to unmute and say whatever you have to say. And if you forgot to unmute before you said it, unmute and say it again. Because that happens all the time, especially to me. So today is about mixing art supplies and other things, because you can get a really nice, very rich, very fast result. And this is a really strong way to draw. I brought a couple books that I'll post to the classroom. Let me go back to my speaker view. I brought that. This is how I double check whether I'm actually showing you something or not. I brought Dare to Sketch, which is by one of my favorite illustrators, Felix Scheinberger. He's German. He sketches in the nightclubs and flesh pots of Germany a lot, of Berlin. So be ready for nightclub scenes. But I love his work. It's very humorous and whimsical and radical and awesome. But I love his work, and you probably will too. And his way of teaching is just so rich and practical and lovely. And he's done a lot of illustration for the big magazines like New Yorker. Like, this is just awesome stuff. And he also mixes his media a lot, where he does pen and ink washes, crow-quill pen, and then watercolor washes or ink washes. So I love his stuff. Or he'll just take a marking pen or a dip pen and use it like a different colored ink. And this is like a felt tip marker here. He's a great person to look at if you like this sort of scramble the colors and the textures around. This is cute. He's like, this is what's in my pencil box. And then here's somebody we've all become a fan of. I brought this book because it had one of Endravac's cats on the cover. But it's a wonderful book about what just ink can do, and all the different ways you could use ink. So I'll put this out there too. I love it. I'm particularly in love with blue and white ink, and I love shibori, and I'm kind of addicted to shibori dyeing and things like that. So you may enjoy doing this as well. This is such a beautiful portrait. It's got gold leaf, gold paint on it. I'm not sure I like the muted mics because I feel much less connected with you. So maybe I will request you reconnect and just try not to clank around your tools. So what I did to prep for this class was very simple. I have 2 pages, and I thought that I would just show you some of the ways. I'm trying to bring them all the way into the view of the camera. I thought I would show you 2 ways in which I usually, sorry, adjusting on the fly here, in which I usually change things with different media. So I have a white pen. I have watercolors. I have white paint. I can use Pro White. In a pinch, you can also use just whiteout. It's probably almost the same stuff. You can also use gouache white, just white gouache. I have lots of Pigma pens, which are waterproof. like a brush pen or a Pigma pen. And I also have a dip Pro Quill pen, which is in really bad shape, but is still fun to use. Let's see, I was gonna look for one more thing. Oh yeah, I always have this right here. I also have gouache white paint. You can use all of these to modify. Something we didn't do last week is do some glazing, and I thought I would just start with a little glazing exercise because I have a couple dried light washes that I can show you some glazing technique with. You guys good with that? You can say yes or no. Or
Yes, sounds good.
Yes.
Thank you. It's often hard to teach into the silence. I'm used to the classroom. This is sort of interesting because here's my light green. Let me make sure that my palette is on photo. I'm going to take the exact same light green and just show you what happens when I put another layer on top. So I can add a lot of detail without adding much new paint. And this is something that really good watercolor painters who like do elaborate botanical illustrations. I just wanted to show you this because it is kind of foundational to doing realist, elaborate paintings. So I haven't changed the color. I've just changed essentially the density of the color by adding another layer of the same color.
Do you have to worry about reactivating the paint that's already dry?
Yeah, you will a little bit, but since it is the same paint, and also as you become a watercolor expert, as all watercolors do, you will enjoy that process of sort of souping up the old stuff. And notice how when I pick a better brush or a smaller pointed brush, I have better control over what I'm doing.
And I wanted to say I got my Dick Blick order with the little koi set, and the
Yeah.
colors are so pretty. They're so vibrant.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah.
I thought that would be a nice set for just like faffing about. It's not as posh as this set, but neither is as expensive as this set. And it's also smaller and you can just put it in your pocket and go places. It's like the camera you carry with you. So here is sort of what happens as you glaze things. You get this sort of richness. Something you can also do is glaze wet and wet. So you have a layer underneath and then you start dropping wet and wet stuff on top and starting learning to control the paint in an even more subtle way. You may not be able to see all these subtleties. One reason it's hard for me to teach online is that a lot of it relies on subtleties I can't convey over the camera.
So, Anne, when you say glazing, are you just really referring to just painting another layer on top?
Exactly, that's what glazing is.
Oh, okay.
That's what glazing is in watercolor, and that's what glazing is in oil. So I'm literally just painting another layer on top. So now I have this sort of plant that looks kind of like an indoor plant with really light veins and darker blades. Something that's kind of interesting is if I add a pure blue to this yellow plant, you'll see something really fun happen. So you'll get an optical mixing effect. So I'm glazing here too, but I'm using the natural quality of the transparency of the paint to get this optical glazing effect, which is also very fun. And I can leave bits to show detail. I can show the details by leaving parts unpainted. I'm not doing a very careful job, but you can kind of see how it works. The other thing you can do always with glazing or any watercolor painting is just see if you want to lift things back up. Like that. All righty. Does that make sense? If you see these really beautiful and elaborate portraits of orchids or botanical illustrations, they're done often with, 5 or 6 glazes on the light bits and 50 on the dark bits. And that sort of richness, that translucent, beautiful richness is achieved by patient glazing and patient care. You can probably find a lot of books in the library about how to do that. And it's also possible that Teresa was asking, can you pull things back up? And yes, you can, if you want something to come back to where it was. The other thing that's really nice about, I'm just going to use this page as sort of a systematic, like, and if you want to do this too, you can just paint a page of washes. So this isn't working at all because it's the wrong pen. I'll post to the right pen to my materials list and to my stream on the Google Classroom. I used to have this wonderful Sigma pen that was pretty much the perfect white pen, and it ran out and I was unable to replace it, and then the economy shut. So kind of run out of luck on that one. But you can always just do this. This is how I paint with white paint. You can also put a smidge in whatever corner of whatever palette you're using, like this. And then you can close up your tube. Because as soon as you have a smidge like that, you can add a little water if you want it to be a different consistency or translucency. And you can also recoat things that you think should be darker. Something that's nice about a brush is that you can really use the sort of sumie calligraphy mark to your advantage, whereas a pen has less of that.
That's just one of those water pens?
Yeah, I
Oh,
love, they're really cheap. They're easy to carry, and they are a water pen. I find that I only use the water pen to squeeze water out into my palette because it's always clean. Other than that, I prefer the dipping washing system. So there's something about it. I don't know. Dipping washing for me. Other people prefer to use the pen, but I find the squeezing isn't fast enough for me and I get frustrated, and then I just dip into it anyway. And then you can, emphasize things. So all these are pretty much still in the world of I'm watercoloring with watercolor, right? But you can also pick up a pen. Now, I loaned my brush pen to a friend, which was a mistake. I don't know if you can see this. I don't think I can bring it in focus, but she treated it like a felt tip marker, and you got to treat it like a brush pen if you want it to still be a brush pen, because its point is completely shot. But this is really fun to work with. I have to go to Michael's or something and buy a new one. So you can always just pen over stuff, which I think is really nice.
So, and that's a pen, but the point is a brush?
Yeah, it's called a Pigma brush, and this one is just called BR. And the color is connoted or denoted by this red end and this red end. Whereas this one has a black one and a black end. So you can buy them black or blue or whatever. Something that's really fun to do is to do your contours with a black pen. And you can sort of change the contours on the fly to kind of suit you. Kind of show that serrated edge or maybe some veining inside the leaf. So you can kind of elaborate on what you were planning. Maybe give this leaf a little bit more something.
can you name that brush again?
So the brush is,
No, the one you're using right now.
oh, this is a Micron 08. So
Oh,
they're,
that's one of the ones that are not water, that are waterproof.
and what's lovely about these is indeed they're not going to wash around in the water once they're dry. It's not dry yet. You can tell it's not dry because it's washing around in the water. That is in it, you know, that is in comparison to something like this. This one is not waterproof. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with a not waterproof pen. You can actually use them to your advantage and just use them as a sketching tool, knowing that you're gonna melt it. Look how lovely that looks. You're gonna melt it and that's fine. You just need to know which ones are waterproof and which ones are not before you start. Because the waterproof ones, if you wanted to do a preliminary sketch, you could use the waterproof ones and you know it's gonna hold still once it's dry. Holding still, holding still, holding still. I'm just moving the watercolor paint, not the pen around. So whereas this wasn't dry yet, so it got mucky. Whereas this one is just a standard writing pen and it's water soluble. The Pigmas are not water soluble. It's the difference between them. And almost every writing pen is water soluble, so you got to be super careful with them. I don't know if these ones are water soluble, but you can also just use, like, this is a jelly roll pen. I love drawing with pens that are color. I think it adds something lovely. Because the black is really, really harsh, and it's kind of nice to have something that's not so harsh. And I don't know if they're water soluble, so we're going to figure that out right about now. Ah, water soluble. But that's kind of cool because you could just make them wash in the middle and leave them crisp on the edges or something. So you can always use the water solubility to your benefit. Just be aware of it and don't wreck your drawing just because you don't know. Just test. It's not that hard to test. So all those things are fun. And then there's kind of one of my favorite things. This is a bamboo pen. They're easy to either make or purchase. You can also just use whatever random stick comes to hand. Because the idea is that it's a stick. And then I have some truly black ink. I don't think this was on my materials list, so you may not have this, but I just thought I'd show it to you for about 5 minutes here. But I love Crow Quill pens. And this is a kind of a small one, so I won't do too much with it. But a dip pen has a sort of a poetry that other things lack. They just have this potential for expressive line that is very lovely. So you might want to try playing around with a dip pen. I was looking for dip pens, and the nibs can cost anywhere from $2 to $50. They're kind of like violin bows or anything else. There's a huge variety in what they can cost. You probably need one that costs about $6. You can clean them with dentine tablets if you let them cake over. Obviously, I haven't. And I just glued mine to an old Bic pen because the holders cost $3 or $4 each. And I was trying to make dip pens for a class of 20. And I was like, I don't have the budget for that. I prefer to buy better nibs. So I just glued them all to something old. So that was how that happened. It's nothing like a glue gun. So there's that. Dip pens are just so fun, and you can even dip them in watercolor. Let's see if I can dip it in some watercolor. Yeah, you can dip it in watercolor and make watercolor marks. You have to make kind of a big puddle though. There's a nice watercolor mark. And then there's also these bamboo things, and these you're actually supposed to sharpen as you use, and I haven't sharpened this one. But these make a really beautiful, expressive, thin and thick line. So you might enjoy playing with those. And there's no reason not to combine all these things. I like the bamboo for drawing portraits.
Where do you get bamboo pins?
They're at the art store, oddly enough, right by the Japanese brushes and things like that.
Oh, okay, thanks.
They'll be there. I really love them. And they're good for figure drawing, for like doing gesture drawings. And often the result you get looks sort of pro in a way that you're not used to. So they kind of have a nice, beautiful, simple reward of their own, in that they have this sort of pro look. Because you really have to sort of just draw your drawing and not worry about it too much. So they have a sort of nice reward. Often they come with a blunt end and a sharp end, so you can play with that. I just wanted to show you all those sort of quick survey of tools you might use. There's one tool we haven't really hit upon yet, and that's that you can use these wonderful watercolor pencils on top of watercolors, or before watercolors, or with watercolors, or instead of watercolors. So they have a really nice, sort of use profile too. And I just love using them. And something you can do, I think I probably demonstrated this to most of you in other classes, is sometimes you melt them with water, and sometimes you leave them as pencil marks. And you can get a really varied result. So somebody is sending all of their art table sounds across the internet. There we go. And that's kind of fun. It's also sort of fun to take the wet paint. Are you still seeing this? I'm way off the table here. So take the wet paint and add some contour line into the wet paint. I tend to think of this as like first class doodle reward. Any questions about these ones?
Is that a watercolor pencil you're using now? That one?
Yeah, you can see it sort of melting into the water. Something that I like to do is actually dip the watercolor pencil in the water and draw with the water and the watercolor pencil at the same time. And then, you know, dip a analogous color and draw with that too, and sort of paint, draw, wash all at the same time. Very fun to do. And things, I've noticed that when I combine my media, you pretty quickly start to get to that point where your viewer says, huh, how did she do that? Like you very quickly leave the realm of, oh, that's a watercolor, and enter the realm of, wow, that looks real, or that looks rich, or I don't know how she did that, which is kind of a neat place to be, right? There's an added value to that. Something that I've noticed in my travels as an artist is that often I had to judge an art exhibit only once. I'm not sure I'll ever be asked again. But I noticed that 3 of the judges, their criteria for who won was how much like myself do the contestants paint. And for 2 of the judges, it was a panel 5, was how innovative or creative did the contestants paint. and so the board was quite divided, because a friend and I were like, how cool painting did we get? like, which is the coolest painting? And the 3 other people on the board were like, did they paint like me? And we're like, what's wrong with you people? Did they paint a cool painting? No, they were like, no. Is it technically a perfect watercolor, or is it technically a perfect oil painting? And Amy and I were like, is it a really cool painting? We don't care whether it's technically perfect. Did they do something thoughtful or innovative or creative? And it was very weird and sort of struggly little moment there. So that was odd. I thought, wow, it doesn't get weirder than this. I had no idea that that was what the inside of panels looked like, is that the criteria was, did you paint like me? It was flabbergasted. So when you are painting, you might want to consider, you know, what can you do to make it sort of punchier? Because when I look at most drawings, one of the biggest traps I see people falling into is, how can I convey the subtleties, or how can I convey the nuances? And then I look at so many paintings and I see paintings that are trying to convey nuances and subtleties but simply look muddy. Like, convey the big picture, convey the vibrant picture, convey the important message. Those are the things that people are wanting to see very clearly. So see what you can do with that. Any questions about that whole sort of sampler page I just sort of ripped through? Anybody? That was a very fast survey of a whole bunch of art supplies. The other one, I guess I sort of forgot.
You forgot Posca paints.
Oh, I wasn't going to bring those up. I was actually thinking of designing a little online seminar on how to paint with Posca pens.
Oh, okay.
But indeed, I'm happy. I love these things. So here we go. So Posca pens, if you don't know, are beautiful, new, lovely things that we love. And they are acrylic paint in a pen. And we do love them. How we love them. And they're opaque. And they just go over everything, and they last forever. And you can paint glass, sneakers, bicycles, pottery, whatever you want, you can paint with these things. A lot of people use them for very comic book sort of illustration, flat illustration, like vector illustration. I prefer to paint with them. I can put a bunch of samples of Posca paintings up. Oh, it's Amidala. So there are lots of things you can do with them. You can just augment your drawings with them. For some reason, I have this pink one out right now. So lots of things can happen with them. You can
Does that
fix.
come in white?
Yeah, you generally buy a set. I can put a link to a set that is the set I recommend starting with. Here, this is going to be my what did I promise to do list. So link to a Posca set. So they come in kind of sets of 24 or sets of 15 or something. And they're about $30 or $45, depending on how many you want. They're really fun. I wonder if I have a Posca set drawing here. Yeah, this is a Posca drawing. This is a Posca drawing. That's not a Posca drawing. That's a Posca drawing. I like that one. Hold it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a painting that's a drawing. And then things get sad. I thought this came out as a beautiful portrait. Flip back a little bit. I have one of fish somewhere that I just love. Oh, this is my beautiful forest. Oh, Posca. This is like some fantasy. There was a doodle of a human here, and then I Posca'd over it. This is a Windy Hill, just up the hill from us. This is these wonderful fish. I love these fish. And they just started out as a doodle, and then all of a sudden they were fish, so we went with that.
So it looks like they're not that good for detailing, but as,
No, they're painterly and they're illustrative. They're not, I don't know, to me they're pretty detailed.
oh,
I mean, that's pretty detailed to me.
yeah.
You can also buy them in a finer tip.
Oh, you
I have-
can?
Yeah, I have a middle tip. I don't have a fine tip. And you can also buy a broad tip. I don't have a broad tip. So those are the Posca pens. Super fun. Oh, and there's one I forgot, which is just your brand old wonderful pencil. But you know, a pencil is such a persuasive and beautiful instrument, and there's no reason you should shun it. Such a lovely thing to work with. It can do all sorts of lovely things for you, and there's no reason that you should think, oh, that's not something I use every day. Especially with things like mixes. I find that mixes have a certain appeal. Like when I'm looking at things on Instagram, which I do too much, I do find that when I see artists mixing things together, I enjoy looking at those artworks. Or maybe it's just that I enjoy looking at those artworks getting made. I'm not sure which it is. But see, look how rich this one got, because it had a wash, a glaze, some blue dropped in, a red brush pen, Posca marks. And now look what happens if I just add a little bit of something to it. See how many different layers it has on it and how each one sort of makes it a richer experience to look at. You could also even like keep making it more interesting. You know, it's funny, there's a fine line between more interesting and overworked.
That must be a hard line to know where it is and when you're overworking something, huh?
It's funny, it's a hard line, you know, when you've crossed it, but it's a hard line to perceive. Yeah. So yeah. And you can also sort of backwork things with, my husband hates it when I do this, but once things are dry, this is what the Pro White is for. If you really need to rescue yourself and you don't want to do it digitally, I prefer to rescue myself digitally. But you can rescue yourself with white. So say this was an illustration of a leaf I had spent 20 hours on, I might be tempted to rescue myself with white. But a true artiste would probably mix up the white that the paper actually is and do some experimenting that way.
And what are you using for that? What is that called?
Let me turn it sideways for you. This is Daler Rowney Pro White. Like that.
And is it just like acrylic paint?
I believe it to be gouache, but it's yeah, it's opaque watercolor, so it's gouache. It says stir well, which I have never ever done. So I probably wrecked it. It actually used to be a very standard staple back when everybody illustrated everything before there was Adobe. You know, before essentially the digital world wiped out the illustration world. Used to be everybody's.
What's the brand?
Daler Rowney. I guess the crow approves. Daler Rowney, if you know art supplies, Daler Rowney is generally a very fair brand. I find that when I buy Daler Rowney, I'm very happy because I haven't paid too much, but I've gotten a good product. Whereas with Winsor Newton, I'm usually like, wow, that hurt. And it's good, but it hurt. So that's kind of a nice little tour of what you could do to watercolor anytime you wanted. Kind of liking sort of mix of stuff. There's also, you know how the microns come in a bunch of different weights? This is going to be hard for you to see, but it also comes in a very, very slender weight. It comes in like a 0.05. 0.05 is like this. It's like for drawing postage stamp size drawings. But you might enjoy drawing postage stamp size drawings. You know, maybe each dot needs a little circle around it. So there are places in your art world for just about everything. You know, maybe the leaf needs a little sort of curled edge. But a heavier mark like this would sort of hurt the drawing at this point. Yeah. So the different weights have different purposes in life. So that's kind of a nice sort of intro to that stuff. I think next week I'll do a little demo and I'll prep it ahead of time about mascoid. And the reason I'll prep it ahead of time is that it takes it a long time to dry and I don't want to run my my blow dryer on camera. So I'll make a couple prep sheets so that I can just remove the mascoid instead of drying it while we're running class. Any questions? Let's see. So I have another exercise, and this may be where you might enjoy painting along. And what I did is I found a piece of Lego that was about the right shape, but a coaster would do. Or something like this. This is a little thing my daughter and I made. And what you do is you just trace around it to make little frames, or you can just free draw little frames. And then I made up little landscapes. And since you probably can't see them, I'm just going to draw them darker right now so you can see them. And you can make up whatever landscapes you want. It doesn't really matter what they are, what they look like. And this is actually taken from Joy Chard on Instagram. And I've sent you guys a link to her website, but she doesn't show this stuff on her website very well.
So you started with these little swatches of color. And
No,
you want us to start with little swatches of color and then make the squares around it?
No, I started with the squares and then I drew little sketches and then I dropped in some blue. So I'd be ready to talk to you guys.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm looking at my drawing and I'm realizing that you guys will never be able to see the drawings. So I'm just making them darker so that you can see them. Is the actual work process here. Because you shouldn't have to peer through the camera at what I'm doing. So I'm just making all my little scribble sketches a little bit better. And I just made up these landscapes. The landscapes are made up as a result of lots of my plein air painting. And a lot of the landscapes are made up with me thinking about paintings I've made before. So if your landscapes are different, that's fine. It can be whatever you want it to be. Now I'm just going around and making the squares better. So the idea behind this one is with this idea of when you sketch and paint, you should sort of fail early and fail often and paint lots. So I thought what we might do together is just paint all these little sketches. You can paint whatever you want, but I thought it might help you to paint 6 or 8 paintings at the same time in about 15 minutes. They're all tiny, And what you do is you paint all the skies, you paint all the seas, you paint all the land, you add other stuff on top. You know, it just sort of all develops at once. That way you don't have the same, like, I'm going to paint this painting and it's going to be glorious. Oh, it isn't. Okay, new painting. I'm going to paint this painting and it's going to be glorious. Oh, wait, not that one either. I'm just playing around on this piece of paper. Okay, so as I said before, even though the formal watercolor method is to paint light to dark, the sort of practical watercolor method is to paint the next dry thing. So if we sort of paint the sky, oh, my brush is all stuck together. So if we start with a sky, let's see. If we start with a sky, I'm going to take a light blue. Oops, my brush is dirty, among other things. And notice I'm using a pretty big brush. I don't need a small brush. I'm going to start with a blue. Somehow my brush has got green in it. I'm going to keep washing it until it doesn't. And I'm going to just put sky in a bunch of them. I'm going to move along from one to the other. And you can do the fun watercolor thing of dropping different blues in, having things happen. Here's some sky. Here's some sky. I'm gonna leave a cloud in this one. And there's a little bit over here, not much. And maybe some in the ocean here. Here's a bunch of sky. And some more. A bunch of little sketches. So then it makes sense to sort of do the next dry thing. And just kind of look around for stuff. So maybe like some strand, some things that won't touch stuff I've already painted. I think people who paint perfect watercolor paintings, they actually wait. I'm no good at waiting. They wait between brush strokes. You can also do the O'Keefe thing and just not have the colors touch so that they don't bleed. Or you could do the other watercolor thing and have the colors touch so that they do bleed. How's everybody doing out there? So now I have kind of foreground and background painted. I may want to switch to a smaller brush so I can kind of duck in between things a little better. The other thing I can do is pick up a watercolor pencil and add some details with that. see, watercolor pencil. They look quite bright and fun already. And here, where the watercolor pencil is kind of washy, then there I might melt it into place. And then way in the back, I'm going to make a sort of a purple color. Right here.
And
Yep.
I have a question. So you're doing these little landscapes. Why did you choose not to do green?
I kind of like warm landscapes, and I actually just sort of haven't gotten to the green bits yet. I can certainly add a lot of green.
So, okay, so you're not saying that you should always start with, let's say, a lighter color, or should you always start with the lightest color?
Well, usually with watercolor, you start with the light and you work to the dark, just as a general rule.
Yeah, okay.
But they're really, in art, there are general rules, but they aren't very strong rules. You should do what works based on your own experience and your own observations. I'm having huge puddling problems here, but I'm kind of liking them too, so I'm just gonna let it be. So like if you want green, then what I might do is right here, I might make this one green. But you'll notice that my green tends to be sort of warm, and now it's leaking into the sky, and sort of mixing with this pink. I'm also wanting to have a light source in this one. And I think I care enough that it's leaking into the sky. I'm going to do a little bit of an eraser there, like that. That's better. And then also, I kind of want this to actually be green, so I'm going to keep kind of saturating it with a green color. These are fun. Anybody having fun with this? It's kind of neat.
It's neat, but it's not fun for a beginner.
Does it kind of drive you nuts?
I wouldn't call it fun.
I'm sorry.
Because they're small, and so, you know, they're sort of easy to get done, and you can try different colors. And
Yeah, that part's nice.
Yeah, like some of them I consider really successful. Like I love this one. I don't love this one. My gosh, it's like bled all the way over here and up in there. This one is completely lacking in any compositional redemption whatsoever. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. This one might get better if I did that. And this, kind of just to increase the sort of depth of field action. But yeah, it's got a lot of problems. So I'm trying quite hard to push and pull on it, but it's not really working all that well. In part because it's so darn wet. And I have another like terrible bleeder right over here. Like right here. That's better. I think it might work really well in this small sort of environment to occasionally just switch media. and put down some watercolor pencil just to save yourself from the bleeding problem.
Yeah.
Because that seems kind of gentle and nice, right? Same here, like I can make neat lines that say something about what the water's doing. And maybe also like, what is the strand doing? I can say that with watercolor pencils. And then I can also go in here and do a little bit of watercolor pencil action in here too. Like I really love this one. This one's so cute. This one's so gnarly. Like, the differences are ridiculous. I also got to say that if you're expecting perfection from watercolor at any point, it's kind of a difficult medium because it's not actually going to do much that's perfect ever. It's sort of against its nature. It's not a perfection sort of perfection sort of medium. I think something that would be nice is to also just put a little white in places like up here. Here's where my acrylic oil painterness comes in, because I'm like, let's just make it white. Which is so not okay with so many people. The other thing that's fun is to take these sort of simple washes, and once what's around them is done drying, you can then go in and wet the watercolor pencils down a little bit. Fun. That looks cool. So does anyone have any questions about this stuff? I keep sort of monkeying around with it, making it a little bit more intense, making it a little stronger. This one back here, this mountain should be a little colder and cooler and lighter. Ouch. I may just add some darks back here, not because I think they are a thing, but that I think the drawing needs them. For design reasons, I guess. Like maybe this is a cliff with rocks out to sea kind of thing. There we go. This one's actually framing up to look like an actual drawing, which I find pleasing. Kind of cool. I think that your question about what about the green is really that I tend to avoid greens until I have to use them. Something that I find typical of all paintings is that the greens tend to become quickly predominant. I do tend to avoid them until I need them. I find that greens are very cold, really, and that if you can find places in your paintings that can be gold colored or red colored or violet or pink, that's good. This one actually looks like a painting at this point. Wow. So something that I see though is that my cliffs became very, very cold. So something that I would naturally do is go in and add some essentially cadmium red to them. Drop a little bit of warm in them so that they don't look so darn cold. Otherwise they look like a portal to another universe. That's not the idea. These ones probably, now that they're dry, I see that they need another shot of something dark. All right, any other questions about these? There are some I didn't even start, which is interesting. This one, get painted. I think sort of the more you do this kind of thing, even if you do little portraits of people or pictures of your dog or, you know, like 6 flowers on one page, whatever you can do that sort of brings up your multiple count, I think you'll be pretty happy to just have more paintings under your belt. Because that is really how you become a really good painter, is to literally have painted a lot. Here's where my natural impatience gets the better of me, because I should not be painting there. I keep swinging around to do something to another painting and it's not ready yet. Now this one's kind of neat in its little bit of simplicity. This one just got another layer. Like another something is happening in it that wasn't before. I think that makes it a lot better. Notice that I often use my primaries essentially pure. Like I just add blue, and then I just add blue. I don't necessarily pre-mix a brown or a gray. I find that if I can use a primary as a primary, I'm pretty happy with how vibrant the color becomes. The other thing I can do here, since I'm always advocating adding other stuff, is you can actually use your ink brush to add marks to your paintings. And it might not be all that possible for as long as the painting is blank. But it is fun to play with, just like, what else could you do with your tools? And you might find if you take this sort of sketching outdoors, it has a tremendous outdoor power. Like if you took it up to San Francisco or just into your backyard or onto your balcony, because they're so small, you'll get a lot of run time out of them. I kind of like it just sort of like colored penciled outlined. And then this little bleed can just become another tree. Oh, so cute. Let's see if it helps this one too. This one I initially really, really loved, and now I've got made it too muddy, and now I think it might as well do something else to it. But it's cute because you can also like be cutesy poo with yourself and put a little signature under them. So any other, it seems like you guys are all very happily drawing. Any other feedback on this one? Remember to unmute yourself if you want to say something.
I like the fact that you can move quickly, and I don't think so much about what I'm doing when I go quickly. That helps.
There's tremendous power to just being like, I'm painting all 8 of these in the next 10 minutes, whatever you're going to do. I think there's a lot of power to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like it with sketchy outlines, with pen, or without?
Whoa, that one is amazing. That
What?
is cool.
What do you think? With or without?
I like it without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I
with,
like it without too.
they get all rigid.
I think the with looks more abstract, more like a.
More sort of like designery, whereas without they look more like a painting.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Nice.
And then you can just keep on, once it's dry, you can then sort of revert to another medium, right? It's kind of hard to put watercolor pencils on wet watercolor and be happy. But you can also keep marking with pencils. You get a much smaller brush. Now start doing line work with your small brushes. I think I have this really cute little rigger brush. And maybe with the rigger I can add little detail work. These big washes that sort of wipe out my own efforts. I keep trying to dip into my purple and dipping into my black, which I'm not enjoying. I think that as artists, there's a huge pressure to like prove yourself by painting something marvelous every time. And I think some of that pressure is dissipated by this method of just, I'm going to paint all these paintings right now. None of them are going to flop, which I think is really lovely and sort of important. Because, you know, the sort of classic story of an artist is this will be my masterpiece. But that's not actually how art works. That's not how daily life, at least as I have experienced it as an artist, is. I have never painted a masterpiece and probably never will. Now I'm using the watercolor paint like it was casing, which is an interesting medium. Yeah, there's this whole method of painting which relies on working with these little thin hash marks to build up layers. I'm not sure I like it. I think I prefer a big swooshy mess.
Your comments, Anne, about just doing stuff that's not a masterpiece. I bought myself one special little book, and all the paintings that I do in it, I even said it, I made the comments of my intent. It's a book for me.
Yeah.
It's not for anybody else. It's for me. And nobody else sees it.
Yeah. I think it's important. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just said, and then I just paint and I feel a different kind of a freedom because I'm not producing something for anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one reason I paint self-portraits, because I know that they have no future. They are not intended for a show or a competition or a gallery. They are just to practice. And that's what they're for, and I really love that about them. It's only recently that I have discovered you can kind of just mush about in landscape and make something that looks pretty landscapey. But the brain process is a little bit like making a sculpture where you push and pull at things until it kind of looks right. And I'm kind of thinking that that may have to do with a lot of time in the field doing landscape paintings. All righty. So any final thoughts or questions? I will look through your submissions on the Google Classroom. Does anyone have, I solved Anne Reedy's problems with Google Classroom, which was really nice. Does anyone else have trouble with it?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I might have missed this early on because I had some technical difficulty signing on today. Have you been posting these on YouTube? Because I went to go look for the last class on YouTube and review it, and I couldn't find it.
When did you look?
Was it yesterday, the day before?
Yeah, I posted it like 2 days ago.
Okay. And you posted a link on the classroom?
I think so. I just reposted it.
Okay.
I think it was just way down in the feed, but I'll add it to the Google classwork as well. But when I searched on Google for Anne McMillan Dive into Watercolor, it popped right up.
Really?
Yeah, both of them did.
That's so interesting.
So, but it's possible that my YouTube knows me better than.
Oh, sorry.
Huh.
Like it may just know me because it knows I made them, and you know, I don't know how the internet thinks, and they won't tell us because it's all the secret algorithm, right? I'll be more careful about posting them in the future, and I'll bump the videos to the top of the feed. I sometimes do run into, I keep saying like the videos will be available the next day, but that's so untrue because I keep running into editing problems where I've done it wrong essentially, and I have to back create the content. Oh, wow. And whenever I've done it wrong, that just takes forever. So I am trying to get them up as quickly as possible, but when you see a delay, that's just me, I've done it wrong. I may actually hire a videographer to advise me on how to not do it wrong. because I'm spending a lot of time doing it wrong. Oh, you know what? I wanted to show you guys this. This is the tool that Van Gogh used to draw with.
What?
This bamboo tool. He used this tool.
Oh.
Look at me making Van Gogh marks. So cool. Anyway, so please be patient with me on that stuff. I had to teach myself how to edit video content pretty much in 1 week in order to start. I'm not trained in it or anything. Everything I know, I learned by watching YouTube. And I'm not very good at it either. So I'm working on that. And if you see a delay in the videos, have faith, I am doing it. I'm just not great at it. And if something is really delayed, that's because I pressed the wrong button and I've had to recreate the lecture from scratch.
It's so complex.
It's not even, I'm just like,
I think they were in that classroom too, your videos. Because I was just watching, you know, the one from last week.
Yeah.
It was in our classroom.
Yeah, that's because I just posted it to the top of the classroom again. So it's easy to find. And I'll keep doing that.
Well, we sort of finally found, you know, there's the stream, which we've all been depending on, but there's also on my phone, there's also, you know, like assignments, or I forget what it's called.
So there's stream, there's class work, and there's assignments. And you can choose what you look at. And generally, if I've posted, you know, like videos, assignments, like the syllabus and course overview, those are all in classwork. And then if I mentioned somebody in class I think you guys might want to look at, you know, sort of in passing, that tends to end up in the stream. I do know that friends of mine who teach all the time and teach children just turn the stream off and make there be one interface. And I'm considering that as well. But I'm still trying.
And could you post the bricks card again?
The what card?
The bricks art supplies cart, your cart. Could you post
sure.
a link to that?
Sure. Yeah, it's on my website too, and I'll post it. And if something has been in the stream before, it still is. It's just farther down.
Okay.
It doesn't ever disappear. It's still there. But I will again. Okay, is there anything else? Is there anything else I said I would post and I didn't because I'm just happily painting away over here? Dick Blick's art.
That was, I saw that.
And videos, including today's video.
And you'll post the name of the 2 books you showed in the beginning?
Yeah, and the books. Anything else? And how about that nice Sigma white art? All the whites I recommend. There are lots of white. Okay. All right. Very cool. Looks good. Anything else, you guys?
I have something.
Yeah, what's up?
So when I was working on the assignment,
Mm-hmm.
I got involved in my computer, and I started to make like phase 1 drawings in my computer as like the bait, as a base. And then I thought, you know, well, that's cheating, so, you know, I can't do that. But I was kind of wondering if is that what people do, kind of? Because I noticed, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this.
Okay, let me.
So this was the drawing. This was my photograph. And then I did this.
Oh, cool.
And then I thought, well, I could start with that and then paint over it.
Yeah.
But you know, how kosher is that?
You know me, there's no kosher and unkosher. There's only art. You get to do it however you want to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, do people like illustrators and artists do things like that?
Absolutely. You know, an illustrator they'll have a library of images they're going to repeat. And especially like a character designer and things, they'll literally have like all the poses a character takes. And as it moves through the story, they'll just move all those poses around and sort of Frankenstein them together to make the story. Totally normal. You're just taking a first step in building your illustration library when you're doing that.
When you first started at the Art Center, Anne, weren't you doing graphic novels?
No, that's Daniel Archambault.
Oh, that was a different person. I couldn't remember. Okay.
That's Danielle. She's really cool.
Oh, right, Danielle. Okay.
But I don't think she was able to transfer over to digital teaching very well.
Ah.
I'm not sure she's doing it right now, but she'll probably come back when they come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just completely mucked up one of mine so bad that it's like, you know, a mess.
Yeah, me, same.
You really do have to know when to stop.
Yeah, well, I don't think there is a place to stop. Okay, but I do think we should stop, and I should let my kids out of the back room.
And but thank you for all the hard work you do, and I know it must not be easy to post it all, and then it's not easy with us because we're not very, you know, tech savvy sometimes. So thanks for your patience with us.
I think you guys are doing great. I think the only way we're all going to make it all the way through this is to be kind with one another. So thank you for being kind with me.
Yeah, no, but thank you.
It's gonna
absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any,
Let
should
your
we
kids
just
out.
do this for our homework?
I think I originally posted some homework. Let me recheck it. So let me write recheck homework, but you can just do whatever's there. But as always, the homework is simply a prompt.
Are you going to look at the stuff that we did this week?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. And like today, I mean, like, do you want to see what we were doing while you were doing your thing, or is that practice?
You can post that as well if you like.
Okay.
So I'll check on the homework for this week, but I think it's pretty spot on. And you can also just like do what you want, and I'll give you whatever feedback you want. It does help me if you post your homework, make a comment about what you'd like me to say about it or how you feel about it. That really is a starting point to give you feedback. Just plunking it there bare is a little harder for me to get rolling. Just a thought on that one. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you for joining Anne's Art Desk. These videos are brought to you by the City of Palo Alto and the Palo Alto Art Center Foundation.